So do you have anything?
Yeah, sure. I'll turn this down. This is a great... I'm having more fun right now than I've ever had as a King fan. They've never been this good in the playoffs. These guys are solid. They are scary.
Solid like a rock?
Solid like my cock.
Oi, Weismer. Pass verschonen.
Oh, thanks for bringing that back. You transcribed everything you needed or whatever? You did? I didn't see it on your blog.
I put it on the original entry.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
So what do you have to talk about?
I thought I saw some of the videos and stuff from prior, and I talked to my nephew and stuff. So I had some feedback on prior.
Okay, great.
Go back and re-explore prior conversations that we've had.
Right.
Okay, so I had a couple of things. I had like 3 things I wanted to go back on.
Okay.
2 conversations to go back on, but 3 points, because two different points on one particular conversation. So I thought we'd cover that.
Okay, cool.
Is that cool? Oh my God! They just scored a 4th time with 16 seconds left. Oh my God! I thought like there was no way they're going to score. There was just like the period was going to end. It's now 4-0. Oh my God!
You got a nice big screen.
This is the best, man. Yeah, I got a big dick and a big screen. Look at me. Kopi has 2 goals in 1 period. Boom! This game's in the bag. The door's closed, lights out, the eggs are cooling, the butter's getting hard, and the jello is jiggling, and we're only in the 1st period. That is how you play hockey. Yes. Yes. Update. Oh, we want to get an update on how Luke's law office job is going. People want to see the skirt.
Boss keeps threatening to fire me.
People want to see the skirt you're wearing to work. Hey, that's a nice cold water I got you there.
Oh.
All right, so I got you that. Oh, man, I am stoked. All right. All right, so I got your thing ready to go. We'll talk about that. Oh, there's 4 things, because I want to mention something that you discussed on your blog.
Okay, cool.
So there's 4 things. And by the way, I was surprised to see that you put the thing up about the cults, because you started off with the talk about Chabad, and you said you won't.
Well, I didn't think in the write-up I didn't really trash Chabad.
No, just in the video. You started with the thing about Tanya. I don't know. I mean, I don't care, but you do. Malachi. I've got a big dick and a big screen. Yeah, and I do. And me and Luke go together well because I have a big screen and he's got a wide mouth beer bottle commercial going right now. All right, that one was terrible. At least we weren't broadcasting.
Thank God for small favors.
All right, are you good?
I'm good.
Are we in the middle?
Yeah.
I noticed that last week it filmed the back of the thing. So maybe you want to move the camera up so it doesn't view the back of the
It's
laptop.
not going to hit it this time.
Oh, you got it more lined up?
No, the book's further up.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. I didn't have anything.
You don't have anything.
My write-up, so we're just.
What's your write-up?
We'll go to you. What's on my blog?
Oh, okay.
Just
you have like this long thing in the blog, and then I try to read like one Rabbi Miller paragraph, and you get all like, okay, that's enough. Why does Rabbi Wine get like a whole 90 yards, and I'm not even allowed to have 4 feet?
I've never said anything to you about.
No, you have in the past. Like I bring it in at the end, and you go like, "Is that that's enough?" I'm going to be reading from Rabbi Miller tonight. I have the spot.
Oh, good. I'm glad you got the spot.
I got the spot. Yeah, it's hard.
You're not going to be spending half the show.
I can't. Sometimes these things just disappear on me, and I can't find them. You know. I don't know.
So, you done anything the past week?
We'll talk about the Torah portion. This is all about Torah, man. We'll talk about Torah.
Cool.
So those are the 3 points I said that I wanted to make.
Okay, have you got them written down?
No, they're all in here, buddy. I keep it in my brain. That's what.
Except for when you forget them.
No, I don't forget anything. It's when you tell me to go look up something that we're in trouble, because I can't find things in the books. But they don't get lost when they're in here. I can keep things under control upstairs. Talk about the Clippers. Nah. There's nothing to talk about until they have to win. They have to win.
They're down by 25 with like 8 minutes to go. That's pretty incredible.
They were down by 12 with 2 minutes to go. That's also incredible.
Yeah.
You want to know how incredible it was? I'm going to be honest. I turned off the game.
I didn't even watch it. I like checked in with CNN and I saw it was like 25 points. Grizzlies were up.
They were up by 27.
Yeah, I never watched it.
I flipped over there. I flipped over just to see what was going on, and there was like 5 minutes left. And the Clips were down by like 15 points. And I was like, okay, they're not going to come back. But they started coming back a little bit.
In Australia, people call each other when a cricket match gets close.
Oh, is that right?
So that like half the country will be watching.
Oh, okay.
But that doesn't happen so much.
So I was in the middle of a sentence. So they were down by like 15 with about 5 minutes to go. So I said, okay, I'll watch them for a little bit. And they started coming back, but then they started falling back. You know what I mean? And it gets to the point where you look at the time and you go, they're past the...
So you turned it off at what point?
2 minutes to go and they're down by 11.
And you turned it off?
Yeah, because they're down by 11 with 2 minutes to go. It's done.
I did that with the Cowboys game against the Giants, the second game that Parcells coached as a Cowboys coach. And the Giants were up by 3 with 12 seconds left. And the Giants were kicking off. And they kicked it out of bounds. I turned it off.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah, they kicked it out of bounds. The Cowboys had it like at the 40, with 12 seconds left. Quincy Carter threw a 25-yard completion. So they had it at the Giants 35. And they kicked a field goal, went to overtime and won. And I missed it.
Oh, that's not as bad as the Heidi game.
Right.
Were you around in America back
No.
then? Oh, okay. I remember the Heidi game. It didn't apply on the West Coast. It was only on the East Coast.
Yeah.
But it was just like hilarious. I was watching the game. And then I found out, we all found out about the next day that the people back east got screwed because the guy in the network.
I've heard about it.
They will never let that happen. Okay, we're about to put on your seatbelt.
So you're taller than me from the waist, like we're sitting at the same level. So, because you seem taller in the picture.
Well, my chair goes a little higher, maybe.
No, I don't think so.
I think it's the chair.
Look, it's about the same.
Is it? I don't know. Maybe it's,
Maybe
this
it's
is what
also
happens because you're compressed. And I'm like letting
expanded.
it out. I'm expanded,
Okay, let's roll.
Are you ready to start this rock and roll extravaganza? Okay, here we go. Put on your seatbelt, folks. We're about to start broadcasting. Okay, a 1 and a 2 and a... Hey, once again, hello everybody, and welcome back to another exciting edition of Torah Talks here at the House of Rabs. I'm Rabbi Rabs, and to my right is the one and only, the very holy Levi Ben Abraham, a.k.a. Luke Ford. Say hello, everybody.
G'day, mates.
So what's going on, Luke? How's that job treating you?
Good. I'm into my 5th week now, so.
And everybody wants to see the skirt you wear to work.
And I had a friend at work tell me you become much more normal.
You've become normal?
Yeah, when I do my Torah Talk show now, and I think it's the job. I've also put on a little weight.
You put on weight?
Yeah, because I'm not out and about as much, getting exercise. I'm sitting in an office much of the day, so.
Oh. And what were you doing before?
I was working from home. I was blogging and.
So you got a lot more exercise when you were typing.
Well, no, I get
and walking
out.
around your closet.
I'd get out and about, walk a mile or two every couple of hours.
Oh, you did walk around?
Yeah.
And you got out? Okay. Very good.
And I was more careful on what I ate because I had more time, and so
So now you're not just eating bananas and almonds, but
Right, I'm eating a lot of protein bars.
Oh my God! You know what? In your case, that's a step up.
Oh yeah, definitely.
When you're like got a whole diet of just nuts and bananas and almond milk, you know, a protein bar and maybe even some potato chips is a go up.
So yeah, I bought like 60 protein bars yesterday. I went on a jihad for kosher protein bars that cost no more than $1.
Okay.
And I got 60 of them at Ralph's, and like 40 different flavors. And does my job provide any opportunity for office romance? No, it doesn't. I wish it did, but it doesn't. No possibilities. Zero zilch so far, anyway. But yeah, I typically eat 3 protein bars for lunch and some walnuts and an apple. And then sometimes if I'm working late or if I'm hungry on the ride home, I'll eat another protein bar or 2.
Okay.
And then usually when I get home, I often don't feel like cooking, so I'll just eat some oatmeal with almond milk.
All right. By the way, we got the chat room is already starting to fill in, and it's only 7:02, and we got 5 people in there already. So a big shout out to Malachi and Michelle and Henry and Liquid Rob and Justin. Justin, a big fan of the show.
Yeah. Yeah, he wants to be like us when he grows up.
You want to be like us when he grows up? Hey, you know, that's the. I always say
shoot, being like the Night Stalker.
Shoot high. You know what I mean? Set the bar high for yourself.
So do I get free ballpoint pens? They're probably. I could ask the boss if I could take some pens, and I'm working about 28 hours a week.
Okay.
So I'd like more, but that's what's available right now. It gives me 28 hours a week equals $504 take home.
You're so obsessive. You're so like OCD. I know exactly how much money I'm making.
And in another week or so, I'll be caught up on my credit card payments. So.
Okay. All right. So.
You had 4 points.
Well, let's talk about last week's show. Start off with last week's show. There's for those of you who tuned in last week, or you've watched it afterwards, you know that it was a very contentious program because Luke and I had a bit of a fight. Although it was a Torah-related fight, which is not the case usually. Usually we just have a personality conflict, but we actually had, you know, a Torah fight.
Yeah, we had 2 actually.
We had 2? What was the 2?
Well, the first one was about whether Judaism prizes solitude or community, and the second one was I repeated a criticism of Rabbi Victor Miller.
Oh, which was total narishkeit. Okay, I don't even count that one. But the main thing was, and just the way that you framed your way that you remember it tells me that this is the problem. I only realized this after I rewatched the video. Okay, you need to sit down. You need to rewatch the video. I rewatched the video, and I had a conversation with my nephew. Right.
Which one?
Yaakov.
Okay.
Yaakov, because he's the one who always watches the show and then gives me his review like the next day. So he's probably watching this. This is probably Tuesday or Wednesday morning when he's watching this, and then he'll give me the feedback later that day. So what happened was he once told me a long time ago he doesn't like the episodes where you and I fight.
Okay.
He wants us to. He'd rather see us make love than make war. He does not enjoy the episodes where we fight. He likes a little bit of arguing and stuff like that. But not like heavy duty artillery.
Right.
You know?
We really go after each other.
And he doesn't like that.
Okay.
He likes it more when it's just like point counterpoint.
Okay.
Like Luke will say, you know, something.
And then I was with this black chick.
Right, and I'll go.
Well, the spot Emmett says.
Right. So he doesn't like the full on artillery, and he said that the episode last week spent a lot of time in the red zone or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, firing line.
Yeah, in the firing line, and it should have been more DMZ time for him. So he didn't particularly like last week's episode.
Right.
That's okay. We've done many episodes that he has liked. But when I was talking to him and rewatching that whole battle, I see the problem. The problem was we were having 2 different arguments. The way you framed the argument was the way you just explained it. Forget the one about Rabbi Miller being criticized. That's the other one, right? What I was reacting to, and I just want to bring this up because I think we need to clarify what the argument was. What I was reacting to was when you said that Rabbi Miller's words and the Vilna Gaon's words were not normative. Now, it doesn't matter to me what they said. They both could have said Jews can get up at 5 in the morning. Jews should get up at 5 in the morning and do the hula hoop. Remember the hula hoop?
Yeah.
You do? Wow, you're old. Okay. Or they should do the click clacks or whatever. They should get up at 5 in the morning and dance and turn on Slayer. They should all rock out to Slayer at 5 in the morning. It doesn't matter if most Jews or most rabbis hold by that opinion or not. It doesn't really matter. My point was that you can't say that Rabbi Miller and the Vilna Gaon are not normative because they are Gedolim that we hold by in our Masorah. So to say they're not normative is like to say that we don't accept them and they're outside the fold and we don't hold by them. No, we do, because the Masorah has room for more than one opinion. And in my view, normative means as long as you have an opinion that fits into the mainstream Masorah, whether the majority holds by your opinion, whether we follow or not, is immaterial and it's irrelevant. What normative means to me is that it falls within the Masorah as an opinion that we follow. Is it a kosher opinion? Is it one which is held as being kosher by the Torah authorities? Now, we can have more than one kosher opinion. My point to you was, you're saying that there's only room for one opinion, and the majority is the only thing that matters, and therefore, if it's not part of that, it's like it's treif. And that's what I was reacting to. But I was watching it, and that's because you weren't listening to what I was saying. Your definition of normative to you means majority. If the majority follows something, then that's normative. If they don't follow it, then it's not. That's not how I view the word normative. So it was really an argument not based on what the practice was and what the details were. It's how did you define the word normative? And we should have just, in 2 minutes, had what's called a meta conversation. You know what those are? Where you say time out on the argument. What's your definition of the word normative? And you would have seen it's different than mine.
So, did you pick up a dictionary or Google the word normative?
It's not that the definition of the word, it's how it applies to Torah tradition. Because I view normative as that which is part of our Masorah.
Okay, so who is the Hungarian Hasidic rabbi who said that which is new is forbidden by the Torah?
That which is what?
New is forbidden by the Torah.
New?
Yeah, lived in the late 18th century, early 19th century, Hungarian Hasidic rabbi. Anyway, I'm blanking. But anyway, he ruled that it was permitted to carry an umbrella on Shabbat.
Okay.
If you opened it before Shabbat. Would you say that ruling is normative?
If he's one of the Gadol, I don't know who this is.
He was one of the Gedolim.
Okay, I don't know who this guy is. This isn't fair.
Well,
to
come
me.
on.
But let's just say for the sake of argument, for the sake of discussion, that somebody who I don't personally, follow. Let's say the Satmar Rav said it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that he did, but let's just say that he did.
Right.
Which I know that he didn't.
Right.
But just for the sake of discussion, let's say the Satmar Rav said that opening an umbrella.
Not opening, but if it's open before Shabbat.
If it's open by Shabbos.
You can use an umbrella on Shabbat.
You can use an umbrella on Shabbos or blah, 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 whatever, right? Then I would say, if that's, how they hold, then that would be part of normative because they're he's a gadol, he's an accepted part of Yiddishkeit. Satmar is certainly considered mainstream, right? They're the majority of the Jews who keep Shabbos here in America. So, yeah, even if no other body outside of that...
Even if no other major rabbi said that, you would say that's still normative?
Yes. because it's an accepted part of our Torah tradition. It's an opinion that most other rabbis don't hold by, but it's still kosher.
Okay, so I would say that's not normative because I don't know of any rabbi today who would come out publicly and say it's permitted to
Oh, of course
use
not.
a umbrella on Shabbat.
Oh, of course not. Of course
so
not.
I would say that opinion was not normative. Give you another example. There are lots of rabbis that came out and said that electricity is not fire.
Whoever said that it is?
That's how it counts halakhically. It
No,
counts
no,
as
no,
fire.
no, no,
That's
no,
why
no,
you can't turn
no.
on electrical light on Shabbat.
That's wrong. That's a misconception. The thing with lights is, it's really complicated. The thing about electricity. The whole thing about electricity is that really there's no problem with it halachically. You know who says that? Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said halachically. You want to say ikar din. You want to say theoretically or whatever you want to visualize it. There's really no malacha in electricity. Period. But nevertheless, because so many different poskim were machmir with it, were strict with it, because they didn't want to get in a situation where people became accustomed to doing it and then did something that was really not kosher. That they said this is a gezerah. A gezerah is a fence that we should all be careful with and not not turn on electricity and blah 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 on Shabbos, because it will easily lead to something. And I can give you an example of things that might lead to. Okay, if we say that you can do electricity on Shabbos, you know what's going to happen next? Somebody's going to accidentally turn on their computer on Shabbos.
A TV.
Turn on a TV, but I was going to say a computer because there's really a problem with it with a computer. What is it? When you type something, you type.
While you speak, can I open up a browser?
Yeah, why?
I want to find out who said that, which is new. It's forbidden by the Torah.
Okay, but you're the one who has to go back and get your.
All right, keep going.
Okay.
Make your point.
When you type on a laptop, what are you doing right now? You're typing, believe it or not, to a disk. You're sending electrons to a disk, right?
Right.
You're sending them in a code, if you will, and they're permanent. There's no way to get that code off of those disks, ever. You can make it so they're harder to retrieve, right? But they will always be permanent magnetically, these coded electrons, which code for letters and whatever, they end up on hardware. So that's clearly at least a rabbinic problem of writing on Shabbos. So if we allow electricity on Shabbos, right, it's so easy to end up turning on your computer and then writing to it, or whatever, right? Even turning on the computer, the system automatically starts generating logs and writing to the disk. So just turning on the computer is a problem. I'm sure turning on a TV is similarly a problem, with if a person has like cable, because it sends a signal to the cable people,
right,
and that writes to their computer disk. So it's really hard, electricity today, to do something without causing something to happen somewhere else. For instance, you turn on a light on the middle of Shabbos, right? You send an electronic current to the billing company, to your power people. And that, in turn, has a computer that types onto a disk. So you're causing, it's a grama, it's causing writing on Shabbos. So because of that, you don't know the extent of what happens when you touch electricity. That's the real problem with it. But the idea that it's a fire, that's not true. There's actually no one that actually says it's a fire thing. There's people that said it might be a problem of what's called completing a circuit. Do you know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem of bona, which is building, which is one of the 39 Av Malachos. But even then, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach said, no, it's really not. It's just we don't do it because there's enough people who were scared about electricity because we don't know the complete outcome of what happens when you turn on something electric. That's the real problem with it. We don't know what that means today. How much writing is involved? What happened just now? Did you just do? And it like, if you turn on an electric water heater or something, you could be cooking water. You don't know the extent of what's happening when you do electricity, especially in today's world where so many things are interconnected. That's really the problem with it. But halachically, is there just a problem with, like, if you have a complete circuit right in front of you and you just turn a switch, and is that fire? No, it's not. Does that make sense to you? Did you follow that?
Mm-hmm.
Did you find the guy you wanted?
Yeah, it's the Hatam Sofer.
The Chasam Sofer said that?
Yeah.
He said what? He
It's
said the
permitted to use an umbrella on Shabbat if you open it before Shabbat.
Okay, listen, there is always what we call a das yachid, or a minority opinion. And they're people who we accept. They are part of our established tradition. They're part of the Torah tradition. They just have an opinion that the guy's a das yachid, or he's got a minority opinion, but is it a kosher opinion? Yes. Do we hold on it? No. B'diavad, can we rely on it? Do you know what that means?
Mm-hmm.
Wait,
B'diavad, is that after the fact?
After the fact that it happened, can you rely on it?
Yeah.
Yes. That's something that we could point to. Luke opened up an umbrella. Everybody's like, oh, now I don't want to invite Luke to my table because he's like a goy.
Right.
He broke Shabbos in front of everybody.
Right.
Then it helps to say, well, the Chasam Sofer said you could do it, so b'diavad, we could rely on that. Then Luke says, well, I want to do it and hold by the Chasam Sofer. We say, no, Luke, that's only for b'diavad. Right? And you say, well, the Chasam Sofer is my rabbi. Really? So you hold by the Chasam Sofer for everything, right? Because if you did, then fine, right? But here's the problem with that. I can bring a whole bunch of Chasam Sofer stuff that you don't have anything to do with, and then you'd be dead in the water, right?
Yeah.
But we could certainly use it for a b'diavad shita, right?
Right.
We used to play that game years ago. Everything is usher according to Torah. But b'diavad, you could find like a heter for everything, right? So b'diavad, after the fact that you screwed up, let's play the Rishon game. Find me a Rishon who says you can do it, right? And you don't have to bring a carbon chatas. Right? I mean, that's basically what it is.
Yeah.
The problem with modern Orthodox, and you can quote me on this, is I find too often people who learn in modern Orthodox look for b'diavad stuff lechatchila, and that is a big problem. That means,
and explain what lechatchila is.
Lechatchila means this is the halacha. This is what you have to follow, right? B'diavad is you didn't follow it
After the fact.
After the fact, did we treat you like shit or not? We can consider you a guy. Can we still marry your daughter? You know what I mean? And b'diavad, there's a lot more room to be lenient. There's a lot, there's always ways out of things, right? But lechatchila, we don't look for those things. Lechatchila, we set the bar high, right? And what I find from a lot of these out-of-town, especially modern Orthodox rabbis, and unfortunately you see it here in L.A. as well, which is not out-of-town. This is in town, right? But I mean like out-of-town, like places like, like where are you from?
Australia.
No, maybe that is out-of-town. I don't know. Like here in California, like,
Auburn.
Yeah. If you had a modern Orthodox temple in Auburn, California, I don't know where that is, right? You might find that the rabbi is putting together a lot of b'diavad stuff lechatchila. He's putting together all these things that you can rely on after the fact. And it's just like, ugh, I hate being in that situation where you see everything around you is at best b'diavad. It's like b'diavad. It's like you have to bend over backwards and do cartwheels. Rather than, and it's watering down and perverting Judaism, turning it into like something that's more palatable to attract more people, and it nauseates me. 5-1 Kings. Wow. Keep going.
Okay, so you had 3 other points.
Oh, by the way, a big welcome to Faith. We haven't seen her. We talked about you last week, did we not? I asked where you were, and you weren't here.
So you had 3 other points?
Lakewood Rav says wrong. You can erase a disk. I don't want to get into it. I'm technical. I used to be a Unix admin. No, you can't erase a disk. All you can do with a disk is destroy the inodes. There's no way to retrieve. There's no dictionary, not a dictionary. There's no glossary, if you will. There's no index. There's no index. And so you just have you got nothing, you got no way to access it. But the FBI has tools, and so does the NSA, where they can actually, is anything that was ever on the disk, they can retrieve.
Pretty much, I've heard that if you ever enter a room, good forensics can locate evidence of it.
Really?
Yeah.
Just the fact that you were in the room?
Yeah, if you're ever in a room, you leave something of you behind.
Really?
Yeah.
A hair or something
a
like that?
A hair, a print, something.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've actually sat in computer forensics seminars. I do know a little bit about what I'm talking about. Okay. The next point was... incidentally, I wanted to mention on that as well was... the other thing was, on your blog, I noticed today that you mentioned that somebody said that, Rabbi Victor Miller, he's not influential, he's not important.
Yeah.
You know what I have to say? Whoever wrote that, they are not important and they are not influential. Let me tell you about Rabbi Victor Miller. I'm going to go, not go on a line. I have actually written this before, and I'm just going to say it. I'm going to go on record once again. I've been on record before. Rabbi Miller, during his lifetime, brought more people into authentic Torah Judaism on his own without watering down or sugarcoating a single word of Torah, without going out of his way and going all over the world sending out people to do his bidding, but just writing his books, presenting his tapes, recording his classes, and giving class at his Torah center. He single-handedly brought more people into authentic Torah Judaism than anyone else in my lifetime. He had more of an influence single-handedly than any other Jew or rabbi ever.
So is he your favorite contemporary rabbi?
Do you consider him contemporary?
Yeah. He only died in, 10 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. He was my rabbi.
Okay, you have 2 other points.
Well, that's basically all of them except for one other thing. Wow, kicking our ass tonight. The other thing was, this goes back 2 weeks, but you put it up as a highlight clip, and I was watching it, and I went, I got to tell you something. It was the one about the cults, and we talked about how you have a
weakness.
A weakness, and and that you have a weakness that you're cult bait,
Right.
Easy prey for a cult. But I wanted to, and you kept saying during the video, during the show, that you can't help it, it's a weakness, you're weak, and you're susceptible to this nonsense, right? So I wanted to share something myself. I'm not weak when it comes to cults. You'll never see me in some pyramid scheme, or like some fly-by-night way to make a parnassa, some crazy ass school.
You'll never be found in any way to make a parnassa.
You're not going to find me in some really cool group that does religion, and has a Messiah and everybody's so happy and you're not going to see me in any of those things. However, people take advantage of me and a specific gender as a way of taking advantage of me. And I have a really bad history with this.
Teenage boys.
No. I have a problem with females. Females, my entire life, I allow them to have too much power. And I let them get away with...
Welcome to the club.
I let them take so much advantage of me. It's unbelievable. And I know where the problem stems from. It stems from growing up with my mom and my sister. this is the truth. I grew up with my mom and my sister. My dad was like never around and everything. He was neglectful. He had nothing to do. And I grew up, with these two. And my mom's always like, pushing her shit on me. Everything. And I'm like trusting her, which was like stupid because she was like, always betraying me and stuff, which is like a whole trust issue that I have, and I don't want to get into that now. But like I allowed her to like push me into like, and I listen to all this stuff. And today, ever since then, when I've been, out of the house, an adult for, 30-something years, every single woman that comes in my life, man, they just see a sucker, and I become a welcome mat. I honestly become a welcome mat, and I fall for the dumbest shit. And it's women that lie, and I end up with. I am a sucker. I am a target for lying women. Women that lie, come to me, sell me your fucking story, because I won't even question your shit. I think it's all true, and they have bullshitted me so bad. I told you, one woman was married, and I bought her shit, lock, stock, and barrel, right? You're a married woman, hit on me, man. I won't even question it, right? Another one, sold me a whole thing that she was a Jew. She was no Jew, right? I mean, it's like, I have gone through so much bizarre shit. I want to say that even the woman I was engaged to, it was a bogus engagement. Retroactively speaking, I would say it was never really engaged. I was not engaged, right? Because that woman had, it's clear to me now, she had zero interest in ever marrying me. She wanted to be engaged, right? And I know that she wouldn't be the first person to do that, because I was very close with my personal assistant, right? And she was around that age. And she liked to get engaged, which I didn't understand, right? But apparently, like women that age, it's like a thing. Yeah. It's like cool to get engaged. Yeah. It's like, look at me, I'm engaged. It's just like a glorified boyfriend, right? It like legitimizes the boyfriend. Right. You've heard of this?
It makes sense.
So it's like, look at me, I'm engaged. Look at me, and I'm going to put my balls on the line and say 95% on this one, that the woman I was engaged to was just, using me for an engagement, and she had zero interest in ever marrying me from the day one, right? So it was bullshit. It was complete and utter fucking bullshit that she sold me, and of course I believed it. Because I will believe your bullshit if you're a woman. If you're a woman, I believe your bullshit. You can come to me with any fucking story you want. You could be married and a shiksa. You could be a non-Jewish married, and you could be under 18. You could be like 17-year-old shiksa who's married. Seriously. And you will come to me and you'll say you're 20 and you're Jewish and you're frum and you're single. And I will believe it. Although, the more I learn, the more I say to myself, okay, from now on I'm going to check their paperwork, right? You got to be a Jew, and you got to be single, and you got to be over 18. So I got to see like a driver's license. I need like your mom's kasuba, and I need like if you were married, I need to get. If you were single, I need you to prove that you're not married. I don't know how people do that, right? I'm going to have to ask for those paperwork up front. Remind me the next time. So that's...
Lakewood Rob makes the point that them 17-year-old shiksas are a huge problem to the 50-year-old Jewish man.
Yeah, they really are. So Rabs, what about your girlfriend? Is she treating you? Yeah, she's okay. She's okay. I'm actually thankful. I can talk about this, right, at these things, because I found one who's on the up and up. Mm-hmm. But prior to her, I'm telling you, everyone used to spew their bullshit at me, and I bought it lock, stock, and barrel. I have. I'm going to say that even, like you read my book, and there was a woman who was not Jewish, who was in the conversion program, mm-hmm. and she didn't make it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say, retroactively, I don't ever really think that she was 100% set on doing it.
Yeah.
So that was also bullshit, right? So because if you're 100% set on it, you go the distance. You find, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know. So it just seems like I've got all these different ones, who sold me their line of shit, and I don't know. That's where I'm at. I just wanted to share that. So you think you're a sucker for the cults and the bullshit that they push you through. I'm a sucker for women and their bullshit. And it's coming out because the women who I thought I trusted the most at a certain time in my life, right, which was that woman and also the one I was engaged to, I look at them retroactively and I say they were both full of shit. Both full of shit. But not the first one, but the one I was engaged to, she is full of shit.
So I had this traditional Jew take offense to something I said in the past week. He was telling me I should eat meat. And he kept saying, you don't know what you're missing. And I said, yeah, well, that's what the homosexuals tell me too. He took massive offense.
Wait, what, huh? That's
This
so off the wall.
traditional Jew was telling me you should eat meat.
Right.
I said, I've never eaten meat. He said, you don't know what you're missing.
Right.
I said, that's what the homosexuals tell me too.
Oh, not because they don't eat meat. I totally read that wrong. I thought you were trying to make a point that people who don't eat meat are gay. I mean, the people that do eat meat are gay. I'm sorry. But the guy's got a point.
He got really mad. He said, well, one's forbidden by the Torah and one's permitted.
Yeah, that's the point. Because you're wrong too. Here's the thing. The Rambam says the attitude that you're supposed to have as a Torah Jew is not one of, oh, that's forbidden, therefore I hate it. Right? The attitude a Jew is supposed to be is that I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that, but these I'm allowed to have, and these I'm not. Right? Simple as. So I would have, if I were him, I would have answered you this. I would have said, I'm sure the homosexuals are right. The problem is you're not allowed to do that. However, you are allowed to have meat. The fact that you don't want meat, though, the fact that you don't want meat is your Yetzer Hara talking. That's your evil inclination. The fact that you don't want homosexual sex, you say, I don't want it. That might also be your Yetzer Hara talking. You're being driven in both situations by your Yetzer Hara. Because your Yetzer Tov should say, I want homosexual sex, I just don't do it. That's what your Yetzer Tov says, according to the Rambam, and according to Rashi. And when it comes to meat, there's no reason in the world why you can't have meat. It's a Torah thing to do. So the fact that you don't want meat, that's your Seventh-day Adventism coming out. That's your Christianized version of Judaism that you're driven you filled your brain with.
Okay, I got another question for you.
Yes, sir.
So let's say someone says to you, I must have you over next Shabbos. Are you free? So I say, I'm free. And then that's it. What's the normative thing to go from there? Are you expected to provide details?
Come again?
So let's say someone says, hey, I want to have you over for Shabbos.
Right.
Next Shabbat.
Right.
I say yes.
Okay.
What's supposed to come next?
I don't understand your question.
Okay, for the third time.
I don't understand. So far you haven't said anything.
Okay, for the third time.
Yeah.
Someone says,
Yeah. Come on over for Shabbos.
we'd like to have you over for Shabbos.
Right.
Next Shabbat.
Right.
I say yes. So what comes next?
I don't know. What do you want me to say?
Well, is it normative to not give details about Friday night dinner or Sabbath lunch or where are you located? What time should I show up? Or is that
I don't know. I don't go out to. I haven't gone out.
But you used to. You used to.
20 years ago. I don't know.
Well, you remember. So, I got invited out for Shabbat, but then there were, no details. Then, I asked the man of the house, was that for dinner or for lunch? And, oh, I don't know. Were you invited? And, when should I show up? Where should I show up? Is it normative to give a prospective guest those details?
Let's define the word normative.
I was just waiting around and kind of looking and.
Oh, wait a minute. Let's backtrack. Not this Shabbos, but the Shabbos before, you came in here. and you said to me that a family. I didn't
Did I
say.
get into
I'm not going to give out details who they are.
All
Right? A family.
Don't define them.
Right. I don't use labels. God forbid. A family, Jewish or not Jewish, we don't know, asked you from, not from, Hasidic, Lubavitch, Modern Orthodox, Litvish, we don't know. A family, could have been a gay family, a partnership, significant other, we don't know.
Could have been accountants.
It could have been the mafia family. I don't know. But a family...
One Shabbos, I said to you.
You said that they asked me over for the following Shabbos. I said, why don't you go to them this week? He said, no, they want me next week. Okay. Is that the family we're talking about?
Yeah.
And then you never bothered to follow up and find out, to nail down the details?
I never got the details, and when I asked, it was like, oh, I didn't know my wife invited you.
Oh, was the wife invited you?
Yeah. And, well, sure, come on over. Do you have any other plans? No. Well, great, come on over. We live near the shore.
So then what they're saying is go to shul and walk home with me.
Okay, I went to shul, and I'm kind of, after shul we have Kiddush. And,
okay.
I'm just waiting, and I'm waiting, and okay, I say, okay, there's no immediate exit to... let me go talk to my friends, and then, just sitting there schmoozing with friends, and half an hour, 45 minutes go by. I gave up and just left with my friends, eventually.
Wait, was this at night or during the day?
I don't want to even get specific.
Okay.
I gave up, after about 45 minutes of waiting around after services ended.
And they were still there. So
Yeah.
then why didn't you just wait for them to leave?
How long do you wait?
You wait until they leave if you want to eat at their house.
So you wait around for 45 minutes.
Okay, but you know what you just did? Okay, but yes. Here's the thing, where this is a separate conversation. This is why I don't eat at people's houses. Because you become their bitch. Oh, we're going to spend an hour schmoozing, and then we're going to go home, and we're going to take care of little Yankee, and little Ruve, little Hayam, and little Moshe, and... Oh, Herschel doesn't mind holding the baby, and all this bullshit. You have to put up with their 5 screaming kids and all this. And who wants to be part of that? Who? I don't, right? I come home from shul on my own, whatever, if I went, right? I come home. If I feel like eating, I eat right away. I'm home, I eat, I go to bed, done. Whatever, right? You run your own time schedule. You became a servant, a bitch, a slave, I was just waiting
around, and there was no come with us, or we're here at this time, or I was just waiting around, and I felt I've never had that before. I've always gotten details. I've always heard, we'll see you at shul, come back with us, or we're at this location, or where we live, come at 7:30 or whatever, and. Yeah, I just felt like a real tool. And I didn't want to keep asking, for more details, because I already felt, my wife invited you? Oh, okay, well. I felt like a real tool. And so after about 45 minutes, I just left with friends and went for a walk and went home and ate oatmeal. Raw roads. A little bit of matzah.
I
was all excited that I had this invite, and then I couldn't.
I would invite you over here, but the thing is, this, I eat meat. I'm not making anything special for a non-meat eater. My Shabbos.
I bet if I was a woman, you would.
Oh well, of course. We have cheese blintzes. But that's because women push me around. Women walk all over me. They see me, they see a welcome mat. They put their footprint right on my face. Right? And that's it. I hate that. Okay, but here's the thing. Here's the thing. I would invite you over to my place, right? And I would make the sacrifice of having to deal with your bullshit. But here's the thing. And give up my solitude. But here's the thing. I eat only meat. That's all I eat. Is meat. That I don't make special dishes. And you don't. And if you're willing to eat meat, I'd serve it to you. I would be the guy who pops your meat cherry.
So Lakewood Rob asks, what does a Torah Jew who does not use electricity and avoids going to shul, what does he do on Shabbos? And Henry makes the point, he sings Making the Motzi.
That's what you do.
Okay, shall we go to the Pasha?
Let me think, is there anything else that I wanted to discuss?
From the highlight clips that I put out from the last 2 Torah talks on my website, lukeforward.net.
Yeah, just do me a favor, though. Don't make a highlight clip.
You can tell me after the show.
Okay, I'll
You don't want to draw attention to it now, Jesus. Yeah, don't mention when I said XYZ. Don't make a highlight clip of that. Don't draw attention to when I said 10 minutes ago that...
Oh, pardon me. Ooh, that was a good one.
So we have 2 Torah portions this week. We have...
Oh, why do we have 2?
Because we're catching up. We missed 2 Shabbats, the regular Torah portion. Because
we already did that. We
Passover.
already caught up. We're caught up to Eretz Yisrael.
No, we had 2. We had 2 Shabbats in a row where we could not do the regular Torah portion.
Right, and in Eretz Yisrael they only had 1, so we doubled up last week. They didn't. We're caught up to them.
Well, why?
Because there's an extra Shabbos this year, and the reason is because this is crazy. Ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
See if I have this right. It has to do with Pesach, if I remember correctly, but don't quote me on this.
I won't make a special highlight.
When Pesach has a Chol Hamoed, it has to do with the year. I don't know how the calendar works, but it's crazy. If Pesach has a Chol Hamoed that falls on Shabbos, right, then that eats up a Shabbos. So that eats up a week. We didn't have that this year. There was no Chol Hamoed Shabbos. I don't know how the calendar works. It has to do with that. No, it has to do with that. It has to do with
the Jewish calendar. It has to do with the Jewish calendar.
Right.
Great. So anyway, I read this great op-ed in the Wall Street Journal that I thought was very applicable to us. This economist wrote it, Charles Whelan. Right, 10 things your commencement speaker won't tell you. Your time in fraternity basements was well spent. Anyway, this is the season where people start graduating. The next couple of months, they start graduating from college. And so he wrote a column on 10 things that you won't hear from a commencement speaker that are true in life. And
I didn't read this on your blog.
Time in fraternity basements was well spent. The same goes for the time you spent playing intramural sports, working on the school newspaper, or just hanging with friends. Research tells us that one of the most important causal factors associated with happiness, well-being, is your meaningful connection with other human beings. Now look at me, I'm talking, Rav's is involved in the game. So look around today. Certainly one benchmark of your postgraduate success should be how many of these people are still your close friends in 10 or 20 years. So if Ravs or I were asked to give a commencement address, we could stand up and go, look at our lives. If you do not want to end up like me, make friends. Like, develop a strong clique of friends. Because Ravs and I would not be in our position if we developed strong, bonded, rooted friendships. We wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be unmarried. We wouldn't be broke.
You're wrong on that. You can, maybe in case of you, but don't bring me into this. I'll explain why.
Okay, explain why.
No, finish your point, because it applies to you, but it doesn't apply to me.
It applies to you.
No, it doesn't.
But if you had friends, you'd have a job. I mean, you'd have to be a total loser not to have a job if you had friends.
Okay, let me. You're wrong on all of that. Oh, God, you're so wrong. You said that I might be married if I had invested in friends.
Yeah.
You're wrong on that, too. Okay, first of all, you don't know what you're talking about. Let's start out. I used to have a lot of friends. You're looking at me as that I never had friends. That's not true. When I was in yeshiva, I had a lot of friends. And I had those friends for a number of years after I left yeshiva. Are you paying attention?
Mm-hmm.
What's my name?
You said you had a lot of friends in yeshiva, and you had these friends for many years after yeshiva.
Yeah. I was really tight with these guys. I had a lot of very close friends all through the 90s. Okay? I was very tight with these guys. But during the 90s...
You stopped getting people's eyes for Shabbat.
No. I just want to say... Well, that was one thing, is I stopped... But that's not the important part. The important part is all the guys I was friends with in yeshiva got married, had kids, and I have nothing to do with them today. Okay? The fastest way not to be friends with a guy you were in yeshiva is when he gets married and has a kid. As soon as he has the first kid, you're out. Like you even blogged about it. People who are married in the frum world and they have kids and stuff, they don't have time for social lives and this time. Yeah. So I became alienated, isolated, or whatever you want to say, from all my guy friends from yeshiva. They have nothing to do with me today. You know, maybe you stop by and you visit them, you know, on a Shabbos once a year or something, or you bump into them somewhere and you talk to them. But I don't really want to go to their houses anyways on Shabbos and when I could get like kids screaming and the whole thing, and I hate that. Right? I don't want to be part of that. Okay? I ended up, my friends, the people I've always communicated, starting in about 2000, after these guys were all starting that whole generation of my post-yeshiva days, I starting with a new crop of people I was talking to who were now in like yeshiva age. You know what I'm saying? So all the people I was hanging out with for the last 10 years or so, they're all under 25. Because I'm really only geared to be friends with people who aren't married.
What about growing up when you were a kid? Did you have a normal number of friends?
No. I'm going to say no. I was more of a loner. You know, I had a tight circle, very tight, small circle of people because I had trust issues, which I alluded to earlier. Right? I have tremendous trust issues. I don't easily bring people into my world. Okay, I opened up a little bit when I was in yeshiva, and I made friends with some guys, and they're all married today, and I have really nothing to do with any of them. And then, when I was engaged, I shedded off a few people too who I was close with, who I don't know, we just went our separate ways when I got engaged, and I spent almost all my time, during the 3 years that I was with that woman, I spent almost all my time exclusively with her. Okay, and then when she left, I was really on my own. So that was 3 years ago. And ever since then, that's when you like entered the world, because you came into my world like a year after my engagement ended, and that was when I was like getting back on my feet and I didn't have any friends. So your impression of me is, this is the way I've always been with no friends, but that is a false impression, because I actually had a lot of, not a lot, but I had friends. But that doesn't get you married. Because you keep forgetting, I am looking for a specific type of woman this whole time. I've been looking for a Jewish, firm woman who doesn't want kids. And not just doesn't want them, but is not going to have them under any circumstances. And as a result, you know, I haven't been married. So I could be friends with every person on the planet. And I could say, hey, come over to my place, we're going to have a party, and we need to fill in the Staples Center because 18,000 people will come over. But it's not going to get me married because any of that time, because there's never been a woman who's Jewish, from over 18, not married, and doesn't want kids. There hasn't been anybody. So that's why I'm not married. It has nothing to do, it's irrelevant how many friends I have or not. That's why what you just said does not apply to me.
Okay, folks, judge for yourself. But I want to continue on with the point.
Well, you say judge for yourself as if there's a Havamina. There's even a chance that I'm wrong. How could I be wrong on that? Do you honestly, that's if
yeah,
to say...
I think you're wrong.
You're honestly saying that you believe that if I had all the friends that I would have been...
a normal number of friends.
A normative number of friends.
Normal.
A normal... But let's say I had 1,000 friends.
Yeah.
Okay. 1,000 friends, blah, 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 8 at people's houses every week.
Yeah.
You think that there's so you're saying that let's start with the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
Forget if there's friends or not. Mm-hmm. Do you believe that during the last 30 years,
mm-hmm.
there's been a woman in my category that I could have married?
I don't know.
If you can't say yes to that, then everything else is irrelevant.
No, because my other point was that you'd have a job.
Oh, well, wait a second. But the part that that we started with was the married part, and you said yes.
Yeah, I said you'd be married, and then when you push me, I'm ambivalent on that.
Right, because if you can't find that woman on this planet, it makes no difference if I have 0 friends or 1,000,000 friends. Because she doesn't exist, so they become irrelevant. Okay, on a job, you might have a point on that, okay? It could be that if I was friends with 18,000 people, sure.
Yeah, just a normal number of friends.
Whatever. Let's say I filled the Staples Center with 18,000.
Yeah, just a normal number of friends.
18,000 friends.
Good friends.
Right.
3 good friends.
Oh, well, then you're wrong, because I've called, when I lost my job and whatnot, right?
Mm-hmm.
I called a long list of people who had been my closest friends and blah, blah, blah. None of them were able to come up with a job with me. So it's not like I didn't have contacts at all. I went through a long laundry list of people. I called everybody I know.
Something's not right there, and I don't know what, but like if you can type, there's work. You can type.
Can you get me a job typing?
If you're open to it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll see what I can do.
You can get me a job typing?
I'll see what I can do.
Can you get it so I can do it here? Type here?
No, you'll probably have to go to an office.
Ugh.
Most people go to an office to type.
If you can get me a job typing here, right?
Yeah.
I will pay you a finder's fee.
Yeah, okay.
Get me the job. Because I've applied for several typing jobs.
What's wrong with going to an office every day like a normal person?
I have agoraphobia. I can't do it anymore.
Okay, so let's talk about me. It's always been really important to me to be great. So when I got back from Australia at age 19, I started working 7 days a week. I was working at a radio station, so I would anchor the news on the weekends. I'd put in 8-hour days, Saturday, Sunday, even longer, and then I'd be there during the week as well. And then when college started, I went to college during the week, and sometimes I worked during the week at the radio station, but I always worked weekends at the radio station. Then I got a job working construction in addition. So basically from the time I came back I spent a year in Australia after high school, came back to America, just started working 7 days a week, because it was really important to me to succeed. And so I saved up about $25,000 by the time I was ready to transfer to UCLA. And I did it by working 7 days a week, but I did very little socializing for those years. Then in February 1988, I got really sick. And basically I was bedridden for the next 6 years. And all my friends my age, they weren't really there. Like some of them, made some effort to, they came and saw me once or twice. But that was it. All my friends just went on with their lives. And I think if I'd invested more deeply in friendships, people would have been there for me when my life just totally crashed. But instead, I was so bereft. I was so alone because I didn't have that support system. And I need to check my notes. Just a second. So I also found the only people I knew who were like truly caring and concerned and compassionate were people in the second half of life. I was like really struck by that. Like all my peers, they just like charged on with their lives, and maybe I got a phone call, or maybe I got one visit, but that was it for people my own age. So that was really shocking how alone I was. And so when you build up strong friendships, then that really will come through in many different ways, such as finding work, finding a spouse, finding support during difficult times.
Can I just pipe in there for a second?
Mm-hmm.
That's how it worked for you. Please do not generalize for other people, because it doesn't apply for everyone. It's not one size fits all. It's not you just have friends, so therefore you get married, and therefore you have a job. That's ridiculous. That's not a fact. That's how it worked for you. Actually, it hasn't worked for you because you don't have a wife.
Yeah, but if I had a normal number of friends, I'm pretty sure I'd be married.
Okay, so that's the thing that's holding you back, is that you don't have enough friends.
No, and I think that's the thing that holds a lot of people back. I can't think of anything more valuable than having friends.
Do you think it's possible that the reason why you're not married is because women know about you and you scare them off?
Yeah, that's true too.
So having friends is not going to change that, is it?
Yeah, it'll affect it.
How will that? I think all that deflection, or as what it's called, denial. You're in denial. That's what it is. You're in denial. Rather than facing the hard work and taking a deep look and introspecting and saying,
I won't do that. I won't go to therapy. I won't do 12-step programs. I won't look at myself. I won't introspect. I won't do any of this hard work. Anyone who's read my blog, watched these Torah talks, know that I will not introspect. I won't do the hard look, looking at myself. I won't admit my flaws, and I stay away from psychotherapy and 12-step programs. We all know that about me. Yeah, guilty as charged.
You go into these things, you write about it, but you also know that you're very stubborn and hard-headed. And rather than change, you're saying, oh, if I had friends, all of this would be fixed. I would have millions of dollars, and I would lose weight, and I would be, where are you going?
Yeah, that's certainly what I'm saying.
So I'm saying it doesn't apply to everyone, and it doesn't even apply to you, because you're not even married. And up until now, where have your friends been for support? You only now just got a job. Meanwhile, you were living in that corner closet behind the garage for how long? For 14 years? Where were your friends during that part?
Yeah, and if anyone's watching, I'm sure that's really what I said, wasn't it? Said if you have friends, it solves all your problems. You don't have to worry about anything else. I mean, that was totally my point, right? You guys got that right. I said, all you need to worry about is having friends. You don't need to study. You don't need to work hard. You don't need to work on yourself. You don't need to go to psychotherapy. You don't need 12-step programs. You don't need religion. You don't need God.
You don't need
any decency. All you need is friends. That was totally my point.
All you need is love, but you get by with a little help from your friends.
So I got my current job from a friend.
Okay. And see, this is typical Luke. This is what we talked about 2 weeks ago with the cult thing, where they get you all excited. And look at me go, I'm all excited, I'm in a cult. Luke gets a job through a friend, and I think that's great. And I'm not bashing it at all. I think that's just fantastic. I mean, that's great that you have a friend and they gave you this job and you're excited about it. And don't get me wrong, I think that's great. But now Luke goes the extra mile, and he says that if everyone had a job, if everyone had friends, he extrapolates that how it worked for him is how it's going to work for everyone. Luke, it's not one size fits all. That's very fortunate that you have a friend who took care of you this way. But that's not how it works for everyone.
No, and so probably 99.5% of the human race.
And this is what you come up with, these bullshit statistics that you pull out of your ass, that you'll say things like, you know what the majority of people do. You know what almost everyone does. You will say that, you'll generalize and say everyone does it this way. And I've been listening to this for 2 years from you, and I call bullshit. It doesn't work like that. I had friends, they couldn't get me a job. I had friends, it's not going to make a difference. It's not going to help me get married. Go ahead.
So did you really have friends, or were they just stuck in this close, intimate yeshiva environment? And so you had to bond. But when you guys moved out of that environment, then the friendship started to weaken.
What's that? When we stepped out
of the question.
No, not at all. We were really tight. And we were tight.
Even after you left
Yeah,
yeshiva.
I told you that for like the 90s, I want to say for like a decade after I stepped out of yeshiva.
So what does tight mean?
When we were tight, we always hang out. We'd, tell our, talk about personal shit and stuff like that, and hang out with them and whatever. But they got married, or they moved out and went to other places. Some went back east, some went to Eretz Israel, whatever. I don't have it. All these people are gone. These people are gone. The only ones that are left in L.A. are married and they have kids. All these people disappeared on me. So
if you were to give a commencement speech, are there any lessons from your life that you'd tell kids graduating from college that they should learn?
College?
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing to do with college.
I mean, you went to college, but you wouldn't give a commencement speech.
I would recommend don't go to college. So that's a.
Okay. What else would you tell them?
I'm not going to speak at a commencement speech for a college. I thought you were going to say something realistic, like if I was going to talk in a base midrash, what would I say?
No, if you were to give a speech at a graduation, what would you
Why
talk
would
to?
I be at a graduation at something that I
It's
do?
a theoretical construct to
It's
see if
stupid.
you...
But it doesn't make sense. It's like saying to you, would you be speaking at Jews for Jesus? What would you go tell? What would you do at Jews for Jesus?
Okay, I'll leave it to the audience. I try to ask an intelligent question.
Yeah, but
of
it's
the
not
rabbi.
an intelligent question.
Yeah,
it's
to
not
see
an
if
intelligent question.
He's willing to reflect on his own life, and if there's anything he's learned over the past 30 years that he'd be willing to transmit to people younger than himself. But it's impossible to get him to deal with a totally commonsensical question like that.
No, it's a totally nonsensical question because I've said here before.
Have you learned anything the last 30 years that you'd like to transmit to people 30 years younger than you?
Wait to walk while I'm talking. Way to step on me while I'm talking. I have said in a past episode, either this week or the week before that I don't believe in college, and I think people shouldn't go to college. That's not new. I said that. If you were listening, you remember that. So to turn
that
around,
was really the point of my question. It was all about college.
I gave you the option of switching it to saying I would go into a base midrash, get up to the bima, and speak, which I'd be willing to answer your question under those terms. But when you define the question as, and you fought it and said, no, it must be at a college, why would I go speak at a college? That's like saying to you, would you go speak at Jews for Jesus? And then you're saying, well, you try to ask the guy a sensical question. It's nonsensical. Would you go? What would you say to Jews for Jesus? Would you go into Jews for Jesus and make a speech? What would you tell them?
Yeah, sure, I'd tell them.
What would you tell them? What would you tell them?
I'd talk to them, if I was to speak to Jews to Jesus, I would say that it might be all right to believe that Jesus is the Messiah. That's not a big deal. Where you deviate from normative Judaism is when you say Jesus is God.
And that is wrong, actually. That's wrong.
We've had plenty of opinions about who was the Messiah and who was not the Messiah throughout thousands of years of Jewish history. So people being wrong about Jesus being the Messiah is not a big deal.
No. It is a big deal. Hold on. To say that Jesus is the Messiah, just to say that he is the Messiah, according to Rav, hang on a minute, I believe, according to Rav Shlomo Miller, who's the Rosh Kollel up in Toronto, I don't want to misquote him on this, but I believe to say that the Messiah, his words were, he wrote this in an article, and I think it was Mishpacha magazine a few years ago, but to say that the Messiah is in the embodiment of a dead person is absolutely usher.
Okay.
It's forbidden to even suggest such a thing. That our Torah tradition teaches that the Messiah will come from the living. Rav Menashe Klein, the Unger Rebbe, who passed away, said that it's important that basically that he was talking in reference to the Lubavitchers. Mm-hmm. And the ones that say that the Lubavitcher Rebbe didn't die and they say Yechi with all that nourishkeit, he said that is apikorsis. And that's heresy, that's heretical, because it transgresses on one of the Rambam's 13 principles of faith. Because one of the 13 principles of faith, I think it's number 12, is
that God will send a Messiah.
Send a Messiah. So it's the true Messiah. So that means you have to have faith and you believe Ani Mami, B'Emunah Shalema, but Bias HaMashiach, right? Ani Mami, right? In the coming of Messiah. That's the coming of the true Messiah. So if you believe that Jesus is the Messiah, or you believe that Lubavitcher Rebbe is the Messiah, and they're dead, so obviously you're not the real Messiah, then you're going against a fundamental faith in Judaism, and we say, our Masorah teaches us, our Torah tradition teaches us, that to transgress one of those 13 principles is the definition of heresy, and we can consider you an apikoros, a heretic.
Yeah, so, for every one of those 13 principles, you've had major rabbis who've gone against them. just check out Mark Shapiro's book.
Oh,
That's
God.
Orthodox Theology.
All you need to do is tell me, you started off with, that's the same guy who doesn't, by the way, we started this show off with this guy. He's the one who says that Rabbi Victor Miller is not influential, is not important enough to discuss. So this guy is not important and he's not influential. Let's go on from there.
So if you were to give a commencement speech at a Beit Midrash, what would you tell them?
Why didn't you ask that question before? You know what I would say to them?
About what you've learned from life in the last 30 years.
Oh, I would say a lot of things. Okay, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
I wrote a book. My book is commensurate with what I would say at a commencement speech. Okay, I would spell it out. There's a lot of things. I mean, how much time do you want me to give me on this answer? But there's a lot of things.
5 minutes.
Okay, I would say that very important. I would say that.
What are some things, particularly that they don't know already, that they're likely not to know
Okay,
already?
I would say the worst scenario, the worst possible situation, not the worst, but one of the worst things you can do is end up like me. I would say don't end up like me. Do whatever it takes, but don't end up like me, right? How do you end up like me? You end up like me because you end up single and alone, right?
And
this
broke.
Well, okay.
And unhappy.
Well, let's just focus on the single thing.
Okay.
And the way to get that around that, because single doesn't work in Torah, because it doesn't leave room for, because you're supposed to be shomer negiah, and so you end up by yourself, jerking off and looking at Luke4.com. Right? I mean, it's not a good way to go, right?
Yeah.
So, and all of the mitzvahs require a partner. We discussed about Pesach Seder but just like everything, it works well when you have a wife. What you're looking at and you're saying like, oh, you need friends and that's got nothing to do with it. Here's what I'd say to them. I would say, I would start off by talking about the kids thing, because I think that's what it comes down to. Is people don't really think about kids. They're like, I'm going to have kids because my parents had kids. If you are going to be a good parent, then you can go ahead and have kids. But how do you know you're going to be a good parent? So that's the first thing we need to tackle. My first thing would say is no one's going to tell you this other than Rabbi Raps. I'm going to be the only person who's going to come and talk to you about child abuse and about bad parenting. And I would start the conversation from there. And I would say, if you had problems with your parents growing up, and the only parenting you know is how your parents parented you, and you had problems with the way that they parented you, and you turned to drugs, and you cut school, and you turned to smoking, and you had all these problems because your parents didn't know what they were doing with you, I would ask yourself, before you get married, and before you start having kids, how are you going to be different with yours? Because I believe that people are creatures of perpetuating patterns, of cycles. And whoever your parents parented you is how you're going to parent your own kids. And if you want your kids to end up like you, and they're going to cut school, and they're going to be jerking off, and smoking pot, and smoking cigarettes, and cutting school, and having problems with their parents being you, then you have to think to yourself, do you want kids to go through that kind of pain? If you think you're going to be a bad parent, then you should not have kids. If you grew up abused, then you should not have kids. Because if you were abusive to them, you're going to create child abuse victims. If you were abused, you're just going to create child abuse victims. I would start the conversation there. That would be the beginning of my talk. There's nothing else to say that's more important. So I am here to end the cycle of abuse. Okay? I am here to tell you, to teach you, that it's a choice, it's a Torah choice, that if you believe you're going to be a bad parent and you're going to be abusive to them, whether you're going to be neglectful, you're going to scream at them, you're going to cuss at them, you're going to hit them, you're going to do whatever, then you should not have kids. It's a mitzvah for you not to have kids because it's a Havas Yisrael. How could you hurt another Jewish child? How could you hurt them? So you're gonna be selfish. You're gonna hurt them. So think about not having them. Now, once you decide that you're not going to have them, you're going to have another choice to make. Do you want to go through the rest of your life single? Because the problem is, no one's telling the girls right now in the girls' yeshiva the same thing. I'm here to tell the guys, but who's telling the girls this? Nobody, right? So all the girls are going to want to have kids, and it's not widely popular to take the choice that needs to be made. I am a groundbreaker. I am at the forefront. I'm a pioneer. I'm taking the approach that people should follow me. Up till now, nobody follows me. So you're going to be on your own for the rest of your life doing this. Just like me. You're going to end up like me. Unless you have kids, you're going to have a choice. Be a child abuser or end up like me. I have chosen to end up like me. I have taken that upon myself. But not everyone can do this. If you don't want to end up like me, you're going to have a choice. You either get married and to somebody who wants kids and go ahead and be a child abuser and deal with that guilt, right? Or you're going to have to find a different way out, and that means you're either going to you don't want to end, you're either going to end up like me, you're going to commit suicide, or you're going to have to marry somebody who's not from.
So if you were faced with a choice between not having enough money to eat or having to type in an office,
what is one thing? How do you shift gears like that? In other words, you weren't listening to a word I said.
I heard it. I've heard it a million times.
So then, why did you have me say it?
I didn't have you say that point.
But that is the point. That's if I'm going to talk to people, right, at a commencement speech or whatever in a basement. Right. That's what I'm going to talk about. Okay. If you don't want to hear that, then don't invite me, because that's what I offer the Jewish world that you're not going to hear anywhere else. Like from my observations, I would say you don't want to end up with me like me. Why do you end up like me? Because I refuse. Let's go to the bottom line. I mean, I'm a good-looking guy. A lot of chicks want me. Why am I still not married after all these years? And the answer is because I don't want kids. And why don't I want kids? Because I will be a child abuser. So I have done the righteous thing and put myself through self-sacrifice, if you will, and elected to end up like this rather than live with the guilt of putting a child through the same upbringing that I went through, right? How many people are willing to do that? So far, nobody, right? So I stand alone in this. I shouldn't be alone. I know there's a lot of people who should be following me, and I would go pitch that to the yeshivas. And that's why they don't let me speak. Because mainstream is not ready to hear this, right? I want to say most Ashkenazi Jews, particularly, are so enabled. I think it's due to so many hundreds of years of inbreeding has left them incapable of thinking for themselves. And somebody who comes with a little bit of thinking outside the box, kosher, but outside, you already call it not normative. Right? But they just marginalize your thinking. They don't want to have anything to do with you. And they don't want to hear it. They just like, blah, 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 blah. They don't want to hear it. And that's unfortunate. You know, but like we talked about during the interview when you first met me that first day. I said the Gedolim have no problem with Rabbi Raps. Remember me talking about that?
I did.
My rabbi is a tremendous Talmud Chacham. Right? He's accepted in, mainstream. They love him. He didn't have any problems with my approach. Right? The only people who have problems with me are people who are insecure with their own Judaism. They don't know. They don't know because they just know that, you're supposed to marry somebody who's your age, who looks like you. You have two Ashkenazi parents, so you're looking for somebody with two Ashkenazi parents. Marry someone who looks like your sister, someone your age, and it's like weird. And then, I need to make a cholent on Friday, or whatever, for Shabbos, and I have gefilte fish, and that's all I know, and that's how, I have 4 kids, and, for guys like me who think outside the box, it's a little bit hard reaching these people. Okay, now that I put you to sleep, what's the score?
So, in this week's Torah portion,
yes.
let's talk about Yom Kippur and
yes.
what the high priest's obligations are.
What do we call the high priest in Hebrew?
Kohen Gadol.
Good.
So the Kohen Gadol blesses the people. He's aware that he bears the responsibility for their behavior. He's charged with being the proper role model for his fellow priests, for all of Israel generally.
Okay.
So it sounds to me like the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, sounds a lot like a Hasidic Rebbe.
How so?
Well, taking on that responsibility for the people and communing directly with God on their behalf.
Why just a Hasidic? Why couldn't it be a major Rav in the Yeshiva Shavil?
Because there's more of a notion in Hasidic Judaism of the Rebbe as the representative of the people in a special relationship to God.
Do you think that that's healthy? Do you think that that's a kosher way to go?
I don't know.
Fair enough. Are you a big believer that God hears our prayers equally?
No, I think I stand with the Rambam that God gets close to those in particular who get close to Him.
Okay, that's true.
That they're more rarefied people, and I think they're in a close relationship with God. So, like, no, I don't think somebody like bangs hookers, cheats on his taxes. It's like
Wow. Talk about going to an extreme.
It's like, unethical businessman, beats his kids. It's just a shanda during the week, but he shows up in shul on Shabbos and beats his chest and, asks God for stuff. I don't think he'd take that as seriously as a tzaddik, as a truly righteous man. Something else that, you asked me a question, how did what are my beliefs about prayer and what are my beliefs about the Rebbe holding a special role in Hasidic Judaism? I had some people over the past week who were introduced to me, Orthodox Jews, and they said, well, are you pro or con Orthodox Judaism? And I said, I don't really like to take a position, I just prefer to observe and to understand.
Right.
And he said, well, you've been with porn stars and you've been around, you've played the life. Now I want you to give me some inspiration about the virtues of abiding by Orthodox Judaism rather than just sleeping with as many women as you can. And I said, again, I don't really have anything to teach you or to tell you. I just try to understand why people make the choices they make, but I'm not really one to give inspiration for Torah. And on this show, I'm not like some inspiring teacher. My main interest is understanding why Hasidim regard their Rebbes in a certain way and why they believe certain things, why Satmar believes certain things, while the Lubavitch believe certain things, while the modern Orthodox believe certain things, while the Reform and Conservatives believe certain things. I'm more interested in understanding the world. Like, I often had people who are against pornography come to me and try to get arguments against why pornography is a bad thing. And that was never my focus as a writer on the porn industry. I just wanted to understand how the porn industry worked, why people made porn, what were the consequences to their lives, try to understand the consequences to society from pornography, what are the different types, how does the economics of porn work. So whether it's the pornography industry or Orthodox Judaism or Reform Judaism or conservative politics, I mainly just want to try to understand what's happening and try to describe what I see going on in the world.
Oh, you said that to me like 2 years ago, that you said you're not an adversary, you're a journalist.
I'm not an advocate, generally speaking.
I'm sorry, not an advocate.
Sometimes I will become, sometimes that will come out. So I'm not going to put myself in a box and say, never advocate anything. But that's generally not where I'm comfortable at. Okay.
Do you mind if I just...
Please.
Okay, there's 3 things in the chat room. It's getting interesting. It's getting interesting now that a certain person who was very bombastic, or whatever you say, is out of the room. First of all, Talman123 was listening to my speech about how I've elected to remain single without a woman or whatever, without a wife or whatever. That's what's happened for the last 30 years or whatever, rather than abuse a child.
Right.
So I don't know Talmud 123's background. If he considers himself a product of bad parenting or not. But he wrote that it's going to suck living without orgasms, but whatever, right? Meaning that he's planning to he'd rather have a life, because he wants to grow up. He wants to end up like us. So he wants to be single and never be married, right? And Shomer Negiah and Shomer Brit, right? Which means he can't touch...
Just like us.
Right, can't touch his wahoo, right? Can't touch his carnitas. Can't play with his berea. His carne asada. So here's the thing with that. Here's the thing on that. Justin, we got to say this. I've said it before, so I don't have a problem. And not only do I have a heter, right, to play with my carne asada, but I was commanded to. I was told by a Rav. He said that I should. Okay, so the Shomer Brit thing, that is only applicable if you're keeping Shomer Negiah or whatever, right? And you're young and you're going to be getting married in a year or two. But if you're going long termers and you're saying to yourself, I'm not getting married because the women I'm looking for don't exist, and you realize you're looking at a lifetime sentence of Shomer Negiah, then you talk to the Rav, and they give you a heter, and they say, don't worry about the masturbation thing, and then you're allowed to. And suddenly, it's a mitzvah to do it, because you're doing what the Rav tells you to do. Okay? So there's no guilt anymore, and you don't care. It's a nothing. So don't worry about the fact, but I'm not Shomer Brit, because once the Rav tells you, go ahead and do it, you don't have to worry about Shomer Brit. It's done. Okay? It's like saying to a virgin, a virgin woman, she gets married. She goes, but if we do it on the wedding night, I won't be a virgin anymore. Well, hon, you're married now. You're allowed to do it. You can give up your virginity. It doesn't matter. You were Shomer Negiah up until this point. You never touched anybody. You never let anybody touch you. But you're married now. You're allowed to do it, right? So Shomer Brit doesn't, I hate using that lashon, but that doesn't apply once you have a heter, and there's no guilt anymore. You can go ahead and do it. Now, that was one thing. Number two was Malachi had a good suggestion for me. It's not it's scrolled off. But Malachi said they should have me speak to young women who are growing up. Have me come into a girls' school and talk. Right? I can assure you that's not going to happen. They're not going to let me. First of all, I think there's a halachic problem with that. I don't think I'm allowed to go talk because I'm single. I don't think I'm allowed to go talk in a girls' school. I don't know. But let's say halachically I have talked. I was in OU. I gave a class on kashrus to a girls' school. A girls' class. I don't know. But they're not going to let me talk because the stuff I'm saying is so off the derech in their minds. But let's say you had a Rav of a girls' school who was open-minded to this, understood it, said, yeah, it's a good idea. The problem is the girls themselves are not going to be receptive to it because they haven't opened up their heads. And all they know is what their mom tells them, what their sisters tell them, what their girlfriends tell them, and they grow up in this very controlled what's the word?
Inbred.
Inbred. No, there's a word for it but you don't have contact with people
the outside world.
Yeah, but people who don't think like you. So it's a very homogeneous.
Homogeneous. You don't have contact with people who think differently.
Yeah. So I'm going to be the first person that has this, and they're not going to accept it because it's some weird guy telling them stuff that contradicts what their mom, their dad, their sisters, their brothers, their aunts, their uncles, their grandparents, all of their friends that they've ever had, all of their, and I'm going to come and I'm going to give them a whole different story. They're not going to be open to it. Where I'm at requires massive amounts of thinking for yourself, and I don't believe that Ashkenazi Jews can handle that. I don't believe they can handle it. and the reason I come to that sad conclusion is just my experience. That they're not open to that kind of radical thinking.
Okay, what was the other thing?
Oh, I'm sorry. Michelle said something. I wanted it to...
What's the Jewish view on child discipline?
No, it was before that. I'll get to that too. She said, I was abused as a child and did not abuse my kids. The abuse can end with you. I want to approach that. I've said this many times. The cycle
You
of
can
abuse,
handle it.
The cycle... Where are you going?
Sure.
Okay. The cycle of abuse works the following. 100% of all child abusers grew up abused. We know that. That's a fact. If you were not abused growing up, you can go ahead and have kids because you're not going to be abusive. The only people who are abusive are those who grew up abused. That's a fact. Statistics also say that if you grew up abused, that doesn't necessarily mean you are going to be abusive. When you get older, we found that about 33% of people who grew up abused go on to be abusive. So Michelle, congratulations. You're one of the 67%. You're one of the 2/3 of the population that grew up abused, and you did not continue the cycle of abuse. And I applaud you for that. That's fine. The question is, how do we know with certainty, when we look at a person who was abused growing up, how they're going to end up? If we take the approach that everyone, 100% of people are like Michelle, we're just going to assume that they're going to fix the problem themselves, we have accomplished nothing. We will continue the cycle of abuse because 1/3 of those people will continue to abuse, and 1/3 of their next generation will continue to abuse, and it will go on, and we will never stop the cycle of abuse. Fact! Because unless the person doesn't abuse and doesn't have kids, that's the only way, with certainty, that we know that they will not abuse a child, is don't let them reproduce. Then you've nailed it. Now the question is, how do we know which ones will, which ones won't? We don't. So I say, when in doubt, leave it out. Let's err on the side of caution. If you grew up abused, if anyone who grew up abused, if they don't have kids, we know with certainty we have wiped out and annihilated, eradicated, and ended the cycle of abuse, period, off the face of the planet. One generation, if everyone who grew up abused did not have kids, there would never be child abuse again. Fact. Because people who don't grow up abused will not abuse. And that's it. But if we follow Michelle's way, we will never eradicate the problem because we're going to just let everyone hope that they end up like Michelle, but the problem is they won't. 1/3 will not. And I'm one of those 1/3. I know it for a fact. Okay, so that handles her.
And the Jewish view of child discipline.
What do you mean?
What's the Jewish view on disciplining children? That was another question in the chat room.
Oh.
By faith.
By faith? I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that. I really don't know.
Okay, I'll take it. There's been a long tradition of corporal punishment. That has been a long, long, long Jewish tradition from the book of Proverbs, which says, spoil the child, spare the rod. Or spare the rod and spoil the child. So yeshiva or cheder, which is yeshiva for little kids, it was frequently not a pleasant place in much of Jewish history. So beating your kids is probably much less common today than it was historically. But the Jewish view of disciplining children is like the Jewish view on most things. It's been a big mixture of punishment and reward. Just like what's the Jewish view on homosexuality or homosexual behavior? Like Judaism has very strong standards against homosexual behavior, but homosexual behavior doesn't automatically dismiss a person's humanity. So too with raising kids, like if a kid's bad, you discipline the kid, and there's plenty of ways from corporal discipline to other forms of discipline, but there are also a lot of rewards given out to kids, so that when they first learn Torah, for instance, they're given a drop of honey so that they should think that Torah is sweet. So they get a lot of candy, they get a lot of rewards. So Jewish life generally, like if you join Jewish life as a convert, as I have, there are huge rewards and huge punishments. Like Jewish life, the more traditional you go, the more true this is, the more intense it is. So they have a lot of expectations. If you join a traditional Orthodox synagogue, you're a convert or a penitent and you're coming back to Torah, they'll have very high standards often for what they expect in your behavior, and there will also be high rewards for meeting those standards and being a mensch. So, Rabbi Beryl Wine makes the point that this week's 2 Torah portions, they deal a lot with forbidden sexual relationships, and I'm really proud to say I've not committed any of the sins forbidden of these forbidden sexual relationships. I've never had sex with a family member.
There's 18 different ones.
I've never done any of them.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
I'm happy to hear that.
Yeah. So
you mentioned last week that you know of a story where...
like brother or sister were porking each other, and I have never done that. Never even been tempted.
You've never done it with like your daughter?
No.
Or stepdaughter?
No.
Granddaughter?
No.
They've never done the Morgan Freeman or the Woody Allen?
No, nothing
Good.
with my grandmother, nothing.
Did you do it with a cow? Or
Never done it with an animal.
Sheep?
Like when I was growing up in Australia, a lot of the guys would in my grade, in my school, in my Seventh-day Adventist school, were buggering each other.
Yeah. Oh, God. Really?
They'd go and they had outdoor toilets. A lot of the families had outdoor toilets, so they'd go to the outdoor toilet with their mate. They'd bugger each other. Or they'd bugger farm animals. And I
Isn't
never
that
did
where diseases come from?
So, but like some of my people I went to school with, they've committed suicide. They've like binged so heavily on drugs and alcohol that their brains are fried. But I've never buggered any animals or guys.
Doesn't that where like the big diseases like syphilis and AIDS originally came from? Is from doing it with animals?
I'm not really an expert, but I have heard that.
Okay. And what was the thing I was going to say? That's the animals, and with a guy. Have you done it with a guy?
No.
And what's the other one that's no good? Married woman. I've dated with a married woman.
I've never done it with a married woman knowing she was married.
Well, that was the thing. I didn't know she was married when I was dating. You got the same thing? You never told me that. What was your story?
I remember like flirting with a girl at a party, and she was just kind of leading me on, and then she finally said, "Oh, I'm married." Yeah, I guess this was kind of.
Oh, that was just at one party.
Yeah.
So she was like, doing a girls' night out kind of thing, getting drunk, meeting some guys. Found Luke, like, hey, I'm gonna talk him up, But like she was like her conscience caught up to her and was like, oh, I can't do this, right?
Yeah.
That wasn't quite mine. Mine lasted months.
Yeah, no, I've never, to the best of my knowledge, I never dated any married women. So, I have kept some commandments of the Torah.
All right, finish up your thing.
I'm done.
Oh, you're done?
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add? What do you think of this week's show? A little combative again. My nephew's not going to like it. I'm going to go, hey, how's TT? He's going to go, okay. And I'm going to go, just okay? He's going to go, I don't like the combative bullshit, Then he'll say something like, he usually says something profound. He'll say something like, I didn't know that Luke was into cults, or... Or last week was something, I don't remember what it was. Oh! You know what he said? That I want to throw this in too. You know what he said? He said that he thought it was funny. He got a big laugh. Big time yucks. Yeah, big lulls. When you said that Rabbi Miller is the Howard Stern of rabbis. He thought that was really funny. So I started thinking about that. I think I've called myself like the Howard Stern of rabbis before. I don't know if I've said that here, though, so I'll give you credit for not stealing my bit, right? Because I don't know if I've ever said it in front of you. But it kind of makes sense. Because, it's like Harav Katalmud. Like the way the rabbi is, that's the way his students are going to be.
Right.
Because they pattern themselves after him.
Yeah.
Right? And you see it continuing because my student is Talmud 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Jesus, are we in trouble in the next generation? So I consider myself sort of like the Howard Stern. I let it fly. I say whatever I want. Blah 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 blah. I say controversial shit. Yeah. Right. But look who my Rav is. Yeah. Remember, my Rav was the same way. So you see, like that kind of makes sense. So I said, you know what? What Luke said makes sense.
And nobody's influenced me as much as Dennis Prager.
That's a problem.
I mean, Dennis Prager would totally be appalled to hear that. This is I have no commendation for Dennis Prager. Like whenever I wanted to give him a hard time, I'd tell him something like that, and he'd wince. So I kind of feel sorry for Dennis Prager. But the fact is, there's nobody who I've spent as much time listening to. There's nobody who I've spent 1/10 as much time listening to as I have Dennis Prager, aside from my own father. But by now, I've spent much more time listening to Dennis Prager because I haven't listened to my own father for many, many years, for decades. So, yeah, obviously Dennis Prager, I found his presentation of life and of morality, I found it attractive, just like you found Rabbi Avigdor Miller's presentation attractive. And then, in turn, I was being profoundly shaped by the things that Dennis Prager has said, just as you've been profoundly shaped by Avigdor Miller. So it starts with, there's a part of ourselves that resonates with the person who we choose to be our guide. But then the guide affects us. So it's just like architecture. We create buildings, human beings create buildings, but then buildings create us.
Buildings create us?
Yeah, we're profoundly affected by our architecture.
Oh. Okay. They have an effect on us. I wouldn't say they create us.
Yeah.
All right, now I want to talk about this week's Parsha. Actually, you talked about the Parsha, but every week we do more than just the Parsha of the Torah. What else do we read? We read
the Haftarah.
The Haftarah,
which isn't half the Torah; it's the reading from the prophets.
Correct. So this week's Haftarah, I believe, yes, because it's a double portion. So the Haftarah is special. It's from Amos, like Amos and Andy. Okay, so we read in Amos this week's Haftarah, and Rabbi Avigdor Miller talks about it, and I'll quote him. He says, "This week's Haftarah enlightens us to a fundamental practice of God." He says in Amos 9:9, which we're going to read in this week's Haftarah, the quote is, the verse says, "I will shake the house of Israel among all the nations as one shakes a sieve. I will shake the house of Israel, the Jewish people, I will shake them the way that a man or a woman shakes a sieve." Okay? What's a sieve? First of all, we have to ask, what is a sieve? A sieve is an instrument that retains the food but separates out the impurities. So it's like a filter. And it filters out the bad. The bad goes out, it sifts out the bad, and it retains the good. So God says, I'm going to shake out the Jews amongst the nations by holding on to the good and sifting out the bad. So God has spread us out among the nations to sift out the weak ones amongst us. So he says, therefore, when the reform, Dennis Prager included, have contorted themselves to become nothing more than a mirror of Gentile society, it is for them that this verse has been written, because God is separating them out. And they will not be part of the Torah tradition. They will no longer be part of the Jewish tradition as we go through the generations, as we go through the years to come, the hundreds of years to come. You're going to see that the Jews are going to be, there's going to come a time when you're either from or you're not considered a Jew. And people who aren't Jews who aren't from today, and give their descendants 100 years from now are not going to be considered Jews, even if they are a Jew, unless they're from. Because it's going to get to the point where they're sifted out. We say, no, you're not a Jew. You're going to have to prove it. You're going to have to bring paperwork at this point. Because how do we know that you have a Jewish mother? How do we know that your Jewish mother had a kosher conversion? How do we have any proof of any of this? We're sifting out. This is a prophecy from God that he is sifting out and he's cleaning it up so that maybe 100 years from now, the only people who are going to be considered Jews are those who are recognizably from, like Levi and I, people who are sitting down and learning Torah. From Jews are going to be 100% of what is considered a Jew. And the rest are not even Jews anymore. And we've sifted these people out and we've made it so that we're a stronger nation. We're going to be 100% Shomer Shabbos and learning Torah.
So there was a big Israel festival on Sunday. Did you go to the Israel festival?
Is that a
I
joke?
think I saw you at the Zionist ZOA. Weren't you in the ZOA booth, Zionists of America? Was that you there?
I'm going to probably guess a no on that one.
Oh, okay. So I went to the festival for the walk portion. They walked from the park on motor.
What, you did the Zionist thing?
I did the walk for Israel.
Okay.
And I didn't want to go to the actual festival because it cost $19.
You have your principles, but you also your bigger principle is the money thing. You're not.
I'm a Zionist.
But I will, but not for $18.
Yeah, but I'm not going to spend $19. So, like, I kind of hung out a little bit.
If there was a woman involved, would you do it?
Maybe, depending on how hot she was.
You see, here's my thing. This is how I go. I'm like anti-Zionist. I wouldn't go to this thing if they paid me $18, right? But if a chick said, "Hey, perhaps I really want to go to this. Would you come with me?" Right? I'll make it worth your while. I'd be there.
So I was kind of there, and I was really having a good time just hanging out outside and running into friends. And I thought, wow, this might be good. But I walked there. So I'd walked like 2+ miles, and then I'd done the Israel walk. So I'd walked about 5 miles. And so my feet were starting to tire and to hurt. And I thought, I'll go home because I had those 2 videos that I wanted to edit from our last 2 Torah talks. Because there are all sorts of highlights in our last 2 Torah talks. So it's about 10 a.m. and I start, reluctantly heading home because I don't want to spend the $19. And my feet hurt.
It was in the morning on Sunday?
Yeah, it was about 10 a.m. now, and I hadn't brought a book with me, nor had I bought a notebook where I could just write down my thoughts. So if I'd had a book with me, that would have helped me get through if I found the festival boring and I just wanted to hang out and run into friends. So I started turning around and walking for home, and as I'm walking for home, I see a ticket on the sidewalk as I'm walking by.
A ticket to get in?
Yeah, a ticket to get in. And I was too proud to pick it up, but I was kicking myself all day. I thought,
wait a minute.
I need to socialize.
I thought you were going to tell me that you picked it up and you went in.
No, I didn't. I was too proud to bend over and pick it up. And also I was afraid that for some reason, maybe it'd been checked in already or as a kid's ticket, or for some reason I'd go in line and I'd hand them the ticket and they'd say, "Oh, no, 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 no." And then I'd feel really embarrassed. And maybe you'd be in front of people that I know or trying to impress, and I'd get humiliated and kind of manipulated into buying a regular ticket. And also I was kind of too proud to bend down and pick it up. And also I felt like I really want to edit these 2 videos. Like I've got a day's worth of work. So I went home. I was kind of on my own just editing the videos and thinking, I should be at the Israel festival because Israeli women are frequently hot. Like I had a friend who was there, and he said it's a good thing you didn't go because there are so many hot Israeli women. You would then never have been satisfied with the women who go to synagogue.
All right, can I comment on that?
Yeah.
Where exactly did you find the ticket? Is it a kind of a place where you could have announced that you found a lost item? Or was it like in the Reshus Harabim, the public domain where it's Hefker?
It was in the public domain.
Oh, it was Hefker?
Yeah.
It was like the middle of Pico Boulevard.
Not quite. It was like 200 yards or 300 yards from up Motor along the sidewalk.
On Motor?
From Motor. So east of Motor. About 250 yards, 300 yards east of Motor.
On
the sidewalk.
On Pico?
Yeah.
Oh, it's like when I walk down to that park.
Yeah.
It's on...
it's by 20th Century Parks.
But it's on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And
there was no one around it.
So is there any chance that the people might come back they might have lost? No. It's
No.
it's Hefker.
Yeah.
Okay, dude, this is your problem right here. Let me tell you what your problem is. This is a pattern.
Mm-hmm.
You won't accept charity. You won't accept tzedakah. God is trying to find ways to get you what you want, and you won't take it.
Yeah, that's what I was afraid all day, that like here was this opportunity
said,
for
like,
me to go to the Israel Festival.
It's
and
God
meet
saying,
chicks, and I didn't take
you
it
can't
down.
afford the $18 or whatever.
Right,
the hell
I'm going
it
to
is,
give you a
right?
ticket.
I'm going
yeah.
to give you a fucking ticket right here. And you go like, no, I don't want your ticket. I'd just rather mope about the fact that I can't go.
Yeah.
This is your problem.
Mm-hmm.
God, how many ways is God going to try to give you the money? Right?
Yeah.
You've got to be open to taking tzedakah.
Yeah, and then I met a guy there. He said he'd give me $20 for a
blowjob?
favor. No, he said I'll buy you a ticket. All I want's a hand job, and I'll get you published in Mishpacha magazine. And I was too proud. So can we bring your attention back to the show in time to just say goodbye? Or is that too much to ask? Okay, kids, it's really important. Kids, stay in yeshiva, stay off the crack. Is there any final words you have?
No, I'm good. All right, good show. All right, let me